Welcome back to the Football Terrace. The Alexander Isak, Newcastle, Liverpool love triangle, civil war continues. The player released a massive statement last night. Newcastle have responded in kind. Liverpool still giving encouragement of a deal that can be done, although it is still very confusing because the contradictory points being made. We're going to delve into them this morning. We're also looking at Wissa as well, who similarly, very, very similarly indeed to the situation with Alexander Isak, has taken a very similar turn, very almost identical in many, many ways, with the club saying if the valuation isn't met, you're not going. The player saying he's never going to kick a ball for them again. So much to go into, so much to talk about this morning on this deal that kind of broke on this deal, on this civil war, on this situation that kind of broke last night, and we were live going through it. And it was just such a very interesting turn of events indeed. Like, everyone's got a different view and an opinion on it, which is fair. And I get why people have. But look, we're going to delve into it. We're going to jump into it today. We want to get your views and opinions on it too, because it's, as I say, I think it's almost one of the most divisive stories I think that we've ever seen here going on. I've seen Newcastle fans say this is great, let him rot. Others that want him back. There's Liverpool fans that think it's over. There's Liverpool fans that think it's still going to get done. And I want to get your views and I want to get your opinions. I want to know what you think and feel, excuse me, in relation to that, because it's absolutely massive. We're going to go through Newcastle's statement. We're going to probably start with Alexander Isak's again. I'm going to give you my opinions. We're going to take your calls as well today on this, which is a very important part of what we do. So, look, let's go back to, if you didn't see what Isak said last night, we're going to read out what he stated. And Isak said, "I'm proud to be recognized by my fellow professionals with a place in the PFA Premier League team of the season. First and foremost, I want to thank my teammates and everybody at Newcastle for supporting me along the way. I'm not there at the ceremony tonight. With everything going on, it doesn't feel right to be there. I've kept quiet for a long time whilst others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that the promises were made, and the club have known my position for a long time. To act now like these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. There were things are right, but that's where things are for me right now, and why change is the best for everybody involved, not just myself." Which, again, I said it last night and I'll say it again. I believe that Newcastle, the same as Sporting Lisbon with Gyökeres, the same as Brentford with Wissa, who is probably going to go to Newcastle, I believe promises were broken. I stand on that. I believe that. I personally think that's true. You don't have to believe it, but I think it's true. We'll go into what Newcastle said, because I think what Newcastle said is equally as important. Newcastle have said here that they do not foresee the conditions of any Alexander Isak sale being met, and are disappointed by the Swedish striker's statements. They go on to say that we are disappointed to have been alerted to a social media post by Alexander Isak this evening. We are clear in the response that Alex remains under contract, and that no commitment has ever been made by club officials that Alex can leave Newcastle this summer. And what's so interesting about that statement is they are claiming that Isak's a liar. We can paint it up. I got called out last night for saying you've called him a liar. They are saying that Isak is lying. Isak is telling us that Newcastle Football Club are lying. Somebody is. Somebody is not telling the truth here. He goes on to say that we want to keep our best players, but we also understand players have their own wishes, and we listen to their views. As explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into consideration the best interests of Newcastle Football Club, the team, and our supporters in all decisions. And we have been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer have not transpired, which I think is really interesting. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We do not foresee the conditions being met. This is a proud football club and a proud tradition, and we strive to retain our family feel. Alex remains part of our family and will be welcomed back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates. So this is what I want to say to this. So I saw a lot of, and by the way, Newcastle, fair play. And I will say this as well, even if Newcastle have made a promise, they can go back on their promise. They can. Some will say it's unethical, some will say it's immoral, but they can. If a player can force a move, if a player can say, I don't want to be here anymore and do all of that, because I don't think that's, I'm not advocating for that to be banned in the sport. For a club to do what they're doing, I'm not saying they shouldn't either, on a moral level, on an ethical level. On a footballing level, this could be very damaging for them, especially if it transpires they're the party that has pulled a promise. If it turns out they're the party that made a promise and hasn't stuck to it, that can hurt them, because other players might look at it and go, what if that's me next? What if they tell me, what if Bruno G says, well, they told me next year, if I can bring them a valuation of 70 million, they'll let me go. What if I bring them that valuation and they're like, no, we're not, because we can't get a replacement? There's always these versions. And by the way, people saying, if there's no contract, things don't matter. Well, Man City don't operate that way. Man City operate in a way which is, if you want to leave, we'll let you go, but you've got to bring us a certain valuation. Now, maybe Isak thinks he's met that valuation. We've also seen Sporting this year say that, but then go back on it, right? So we know clubs go back on their word. Leipzig tried doing it with Chesko. So I believe the player has had promises made to him that haven't been fulfilled. That's my personal belief. But I'm not angry at Newcastle. I'm not angry at any party, because this is business. What I do want to say, though, is the Newcastle journalist claiming some kind of victory. We told you this deal probably wouldn't happen. We told you this deal. No, the statement itself says that we set the conditions for his sale, and those conditions haven't transpired, which means he was never not for sale, which means every journalist who pushed the lie that he's not for sale, the club has proven them to be liars here. That's the bit I found so funny, is hang on, you're claiming this victory of, I literally had Newcastle fans DM me last night, I told you our journalists were right. Well, no, this statement proves they lied. He was for sale at the right conditions. Like most players, Garnacho's for sale for the right money. If you don't give us the right money, he won't be sold. So, yeah, like my house is for sale. If you give me the right money, if you offer me less than it's worth, I'm not going to sell it. So it's a weird one to me. But it's also, I'm interested to know what they mean by the conditions of the sale. Because I've got a gut feeling the conditions of this sale mean a certain price, but us finding two replacements. And I think part of Isak's issue is, well, you haven't done your part of the bargain. You've messed up. But look, they also say that every decision they make is for the betterment of the club and the supporters. I don't know if shutting the door now on Isak leaving will help the club. I don't know if the relationship can be fixed. It might be able to be, but this is where Newcastle have got to be really clever. I mean, especially if they have lied. If they're the ones lying here, they've got to be very careful, because it's going to be very hard to reintegrate him, very hard to get 100% back out of him. And that may not be for the betterment of your club or your fans in the longer term. So you need to be very careful on that. That being said, a lot of people have kind of twisted this news into, well, he's no longer for sale. And this isn't necessarily true, because Ian Doyle points out here that Newcastle Football Club publicly admit they will consider the sale of Alexander Isak if the conditions are met. Liverpool remain interested in the player. And that's it for me, you know. And it's funny now, because like people like Luke Edwards are saying Newcastle, in one breath, Luke Edwards is saying like he's never been for sale. In the next breath, Luke Edwards says Newcastle could have let him leave if Liverpool didn't sign Ekitike. But I thought he wasn't for sale. You were the guys doing up articles about 4-4-2 and having them both. This is my issue with all of this. Some of the media has been so manipulative, so duplicitous in this process, rather than balanced. And the one journalist who's got loads of shit for this has been Ornstein, and he's the only one whose articles have told both sides of the story. So look, from my point of view and perspective, I think this is an absolute mess. I don't think Isak's statement has helped the situation at all. I understand people saying he's under a contract. I understand people saying it's wrong what he's doing. My personal gut feeling is that the club have gone back on promises or not delivered promises which has led to this frustration. Newcastle are well within their rights to deny this. Of course, they're going to deny it because they want their fans on their side. Of course, they do. They don't want to lose faith from the fans. But how is this going to end? My personal opinion is a bid will come in from Liverpool Football Club, and a bid will be accepted by Newcastle. I don't think it'll be as high as 150. I don't think it'll be as low as 120. I think with add-ons, it'll be somewhere in the middle of those two. But I think this has to find... There's a lot of people today saying this won't find a resolution. This can't find a resolution. The situation's completely broken. But for me, it has to find a resolution. There simply has to be a resolution in this situation and in this scenario. It can't go the other way. People will give examples of Rooney turned things around at United. It never got like this, in my personal opinion. It never got as bad as this, even after a statement. Didn't refuse to train. The Suarez situation, yeah, maybe. You can look at the Suarez one as an example. But I don't think this is going to go well for Newcastle. And I'm not even blaming them. I think they've made mistakes. I think their approach in the transfer market has been amateurish. I'm repeating words that Newcastle fans have said on this show. I think it's been amateurish. I think they haven't helped this situation. I think they've done a bad job in negotiations. And I personally believe, this is just a belief, I do believe they have made some kind of assurances and promises to the player. I believe that to be true in myself. I have no proof of it. Equally, there's no proof that they didn't do something. It's just a belief. You know, and if they didn't do it, they can't prove that because you can't prove a negative. If they made no promises, I can't say prove you made no promises. Okay. What we can do is say Isak proved they did, and maybe that'll come out in time. And if it turns out that Isak's lying, I will be the first person to apologize and say, I misread the situation. The reason why I'm believing Isak is nothing to do with Newcastle. And Newcastle fans that have watched me long enough know I've praised so many things about your club in the last 4 or 5 years. There's no hatred. The reason why I think he's telling the truth is that by and large, in the last 10 to 15 years, it's nearly always been the player that's telling the truth. When Liverpool spun the story that Raheem Sterling was leaving purely for money, turned out to be a lie. We've seen multiple examples this summer. The players were telling the truth. The Harry Kane situation, he hasn't come back to training. No, you told him you were going to sell him at the right price. The bid came in, you rejected it. He'd already said his goodbyes to the staff and his teammates. So it wasn't that he was planning. Of course, he was planning not to come back to training because you said if a bid came in, which arrived, you'd accept it. But yet it was twisted into Harry Kane's an arsehole. And I've seen too much of that for me to not believe the players going forward. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. I'd love to get yours on this. Super chat here says, Newcastle have handled this so poorly. Did Ed Woodward move to Newcastle? Newcastle are trying to act like a top 6 club. They aren't there yet. So glad it's not my club for once being a circus. And I think that's a great way of looking at this. This has been a circus. And Newcastle, listen, their statement last night, I actually think's fair and right. And that's the problem with this whole scenario. People are taking sides. People are setting up camp. And they're rejecting what the other side is saying. And they're backing and they're backing what their side is putting out. I'm more open-minded. I'm more balanced in this. I feel what Isak did tell him it was the last season. I feel that Isak did have a conversation with them. I think they have made promises, but they might have not used the word promise. And this is where the nuance comes in. What they may have said is, look, if we get a bid within this region and we're able to find replacements for you and Callum Wilson, it's something we'll entertain. It could be words of that effect. Alexander Isak and his team might be like, hang on a minute. You guys have failed to bring in replacements. You've been offered a figure within that ballpark that you mentioned, and you're telling the world it's not happening. It's 100% not for sale, which is ridiculous, which has made Liverpool sit back, and I'm not going to get the move I want. I can understand his frustration in that. And I think, well, you know, we get this a lot when we stream. People will go, I'd much rather have Mykhailo Mudryk over Martinelli. Oh, you think Mudryk's better? No, I didn't say he's better. I'd just rather have him in my team. What? You know what I'm saying? A big up Don. There's this element of, yes, in a court of law, you haven't quite said those words, but we all know what you're implying. We all know what you're suggesting. And I think it's probably something in the middle there, what's gone on here. So I understand Isak's push. I also think he's right to push for a move when he wants it. I don't care that he's on the contract. He's right to push for a move. He absolutely is. And the reason why I know I'm saying that he is because if Newcastle had the chance to sign someone better than him and they were forcing him out to make room for that move, a lot of people would back it and go, well, that's right, that's fine. Clubs are allowed to do that. Well, players can do it too then. It's got to work both ways. I've always felt it's got to work both ways. Isak has been badly advised, and last night's statement was the final desperate roll of the dice. It's speculatory. It spectacularly backfired on him. Need to sack his agent. I also think that's a really good point. I don't think last night helped him. I mean, I enjoyed the drama. I'm not going to sit there and lie like most football fans did, but I concur with you. It hasn't worked. I do think his agent has probably given bad advice. If his agent hasn't got emails or anything in writing that these promises were made, he's made a mistake, because I'd be asking for it. Or at least if it's verbal, have witnesses so that you can back it as an example. But yeah, I do think he's been badly advised. I wouldn't have released a statement last night, with hindsight now, with Newcastle doubling down. And Newcastle were always going to double down. Because if they come out last night and go, Isak's right, we lied. right. Even if Isak's saying the truth, they've got to do what they did. They've got to do what they did. Jacob here says, my super chat was skipped on the United stand. Sorry if I missed that. If United don't sign a midfielder, do you think Martinez could be the stopgap for defensive midfield role? Potentially, because he's played it before. But look, he's not even fit yet, so I'm not even thinking about that too much. But he potentially could be, Jacob, because he has played in that role before at Ajax. Newcastle have been... Sorry. And what is this? Oh, sorry. Newcastle have been economic with the truth. Those who made the promise have now left the club, hence their statement. But that's, again, that could also very much be it. If that promise was made by previous, that would be identical to what happened at Sporting Lisbon with Gyökeres and the exiting sporting director or director of football. So that's why I think there is elements of truth to what he's saying. I do personally believe that, but it's all the other statements that are coming in as well. It's the contradictory nature of like Luke. If I go to like what Luke Edwards was saying last night, and by the way, I've got no personal gripe with him. I just don't like how he's covered this as a professional journalist. So he's put things out like, so he says here, this is what's crazy. He says Newcastle will not sign players. So Newcastle will not sign players that they don't really want to replace Isak. Been the same all summer. Had they got Ekitike and Sesko and Liverpool bid 150 million, maybe it could have got done. Maybe being the key word, hence given the stance all along. And he's like, I did try and tell you all. It's what he keeps saying. But that doesn't marry up with all the other things that have been said. And that's the thing for me. I think a lot of statements have been made by the Newcastle press, because you also said he's 100% not for sale. You've also said nothing will be considered. Now you're saying that it would have been considered if the conditions were met, but they weren't, so you were right all along. It doesn't make sense. That's like predicting United are going to smash Fulham 5-0. Fulham, we scrape a 1-0 and you go, I told you we'd win. No, but you're completely wrong still. You didn't predict a win. You predicted a thrashing. We didn't thrash them. You're wrong. You know, it says Newcastle will have held their ground all summer, but last night was the first time they fought back against their own player. Alexander Isak has been terribly advised, and in his last desperate act to force a move, he blew his own plan blew up, not by the clubs, is what he says here. But if you go back and look at other things that he has said, brace yourselves for this with Isak. It will go on all summer. Senior sources told the Telegraph Sports that they do not think anyone will be able to afford Isak, but they are braced for all sorts of attempts to unsettle him in a hope to lower the price. Expected bids to be leaked into the press for around 80 to 90 million mark, way below Newcastle's valuation, but designed to turn Alexander's head. Newcastle will dig in. Again, he's quote tweeted that and said, I did tell you, but you're wrong, because the bid was 110 million. There was also a suggestion of 120. You said 80 to 90. You're wrong. This is the whole thing I'm saying. There are elements of things that, of course, these journalists have got right. There's elements they've got right. But I have read, if you go back and look at other things that have been said, Newcastle, they've said, they're saying now have no intention of allowing him to move. You've told us that all summer. Now you're going, we told you. Hang on, no, now you're saying it, but you said it, you wouldn't need to reiterate the word now if it had always been now. It's just manipulation, man. It's manipulation in every single which way. For me, things have changed. There's no doubt about that. I think Isak has made the deal harder to go through. But do you remember the early conversations we had about this when we were being told there's just no way, Terry, 100% not for sale, not at any price? That was the narrative. No, guys, he is. The player won't force a move. They also go back and read their articles. They said the player won't force a move, and he did. It's such weird behavior to say I was right. What was correct this whole time is that the deal was on, the deal was possible, the deal was plausible. That's the only thing that's ever been a guarantee within this, is that was a truth. Liverpool maybe haven't bid enough yet, and I agree with it. I think Liverpool do need to bid more money. I totally agree. I don't think Alexander Isak is wrong for trying to force a move, because clubs will... Newcastle are literally doing a similar thing with Wissa. So I'm not going to sit here and go, Isak bad, Newcastle Wissa good. I can't do that. I think that is just... It's so hypocritical. But some of these journalists claiming they were right all along, sorry. No one with it. Newcastle fans will buy it because they're on that side. That's their side. That's their camp. I get it. But no one neutral, no one with a brain is going to go, yeah, you were spot on. It's so weird. It's so weird to watch that be claimed. I told you this would happen. Now, you said the bids would be 80 to 90 million. They were 110 and 120, as in verbal and actual. So, but by the way, they also go back and find the articles. They also said the valuation was 200 million. Then it dropped to 150 million. There's a lot of, again, and Newcastle within their rights to do this too. But it's this weird posturing of, yeah, we told you. You didn't tell us anything. Newcastle were right. Maybe they promised him, but with Madueke at 0 million, no chance Isak goes for 70 million. He's under contract. I think you mean at 50 million. And he is worth more and asked for it. No player is bigger than the club. No, I agree with that. And that could also be it. Listen, that I agree with Newcastle one. Newcastle may look at it and go, hang on. We might have accepted 120, 130, but looking at the prices of these players, we're pushing it up. The fact that Man United were quoted £115 million for Belieber, they might go, well, he's a striker. And it might have pushed the price up. I also think Man United getting Šeško was a butterfly effect. I think it became a butterfly effect. And suddenly there wasn't enough quality left in the market. For Newcastle, I think Newcastle were looking at Samus and Jacksons and going, it's not really a needle mover. And that changes things. And what you might find is Newcastle have turned around and said to Isak, yesterday's price is not today's price. Yesterday's promise isn't today's promise. The situation has changed. We are changing our stance. And this might be a last attempt to try and get out. And some may say Newcastle were wrong for changing. I'm going to be honest with you. Even if Newcastle completely broke their promises or decided to go in another direction, they're entitled to. If a player is entitled to go, I know I signed a contract, but I want to break that promise and force a move now. If they're entitled to do that, clubs are entitled to do it. I'm going to be fair on both sides here. Isak didn't give himself the contract. If they have a valuation for Isak, set a release clause. Well, he signed the contract, so he did give himself a contract, to be fair. Players are too well paid and will be advised about any legal implications of statements they make publicly. Actions like the one Isak made are not done unless he believes he has grounds. True. But I think what Isak is doing here, and let's be really, really clear about this. I think what Isak is doing is everything he can, barring a transfer request. And where I agree with the Newcastle fans, and this is what I hope that people see me as fair and balanced on this, where Newcastle are right is hand in a transfer request. That will cost him money. That will cost him loyalty bonuses. It might even cost his agent bonuses. But hand in an actual transfer request. I think what he did last night, and this is my overarching view, having listened to you guys this morning too. Last night wasn't a last-ditch desperate attempt to move. It was an attempt to force the move without handing an official transfer request because he doesn't want to lose money. And I saw Stan Collingwood say something last night, and I do agree with it. Players want to force the move without sacrificing the money. And I just don't think Newcastle are going to allow that to happen. And that's right of Newcastle. That is correct by Newcastle. And I think Liverpool fans have to agree, because maybe the biggest reason they were angry at Trent, yes, he was local, is because he went for free and it cost them money. If Trent had made the money in East Sal, they'd be less angry. The same as if Isak foregoes his money and bonuses to force the move, plus gets a transfer fee, I think it's more acceptable to Newcastle United. I think it's a really good point. Where is the same energy from the pundits that called out Liverpool fans for booing Trent for 5 minutes? Newcastle fans changed Isak's a greedy bastard, chanted Isak's a greedy bastard for 90 minutes. That is where I also agree with you. This is what I've been saying for days. Like, people think I'm on the Isak side on this because they only hear certain parts of what I say, and they're just completely and utterly wrong. I do believe that he's been lied to by his club, but I also believe that Isak should hand in an official transfer request and force the move that way, the official way, rather than doing what he's doing, because what he's doing isn't working. So I agree. I look at it from both sides. I also don't want this to leave football. I love it. I hate if it was my club, but I love this stuff. And if Belieber forced the move today and Man United sign him, I'm cheering him on the pitch. I'm not going to go, he's a horrible man, I don't want him at my club. I just don't. I think that pseudo-moralistic posturing is ridiculous. Because if you read the Wissa story today, which is part of today's show, to be fair, where's it gone here? This is an interesting comment here. It says, I like how Isak and Wissa have ambition and want to move. However, grow the fuck up. We aren't 12 anymore. Many men out there turning up to a place doing a job they don't want to do. It's a little different, though. It's a lot easier to leave a normal job. I thought it was going to be a good comment. Yeah, this here from Keith, who says that Johan Wissa is not expected to play for Brentford again and will become a Newcastle player. It's a case of when, not if. A new bid is expected to come from Newcastle in the next 24 to 48 hours. So yeah, he is going to become, he's forced that move. He's gone on strike. He's refused to play. Brentford have not kept all their promises, though. They keep upping his price, which is different to what Newcastle have done, potentially, but it's all within the same ballpark. You can find there's differences, but overall, it's just, that's also why I don't think I've had sympathy for Newcastle fans, is, yes, I know you've all done we don't like that either. Oh, it's terrible as well. But when he's wearing the black and white stripes, no longer the red and white stripes, and he walks onto your pitch, you're gonna welcome him like a hero, which you're entitled to do, which is fair. The Northern Echo says Newcastle unwilling to pay more than 40 million for Johan Wissa, but Brentford have put a 60 million pound price tag on the 28-year-old. So again, let's see if there's that. And this is also it as well. This is the brilliant part. This is what I love. Newcastle fans, we are not going to yield and we shouldn't yield. Equally, Newcastle, we are not going to yield and we shouldn't yield on what we want to pay for Johan Wissa. And some also have differences because of this and that reason. The principle is the same. And that's why I don't have sympathy for either fan base in terms of the transactional side of things. I feel sorry for Newcastle fans that their club overall, I think, had a bad summer by and large. I think their media has been very disingenuous. But on the transactional element, I don't feel any sorrow, because you're doing the same thing to Brentford fans. It's a bit like, you watch a little shark eat a fish and go, oh, that's cruel. And then you watch a bigger shark eat that shark. Oh, that's cruel. It's just the food chain, man. It is just the food chain. Let's go to some more of your comments here. Newcastle unsettled Isak first. They touted him to Liverpool, and Klopp said no. They then offered them Gordon. They only have themselves to blame. But that's also, we like to do this, don't we, in life? And you can draw your conclusions to what I'm referring to. But sometimes people like to start history from a certain point because it suits their narrative better. And I think we're seeing that from Newcastle here. It's the starting point is them unsettling him this summer. But last year you were offering that player out. And I made this analogy last night because someone brought up marriage. And I'm like, look, if you're married and you're committed husband and wife, and your partner cheats, you've got grounds for divorce and you've got grounds to go through that legal process of separating. But if you go through a period where you're offering your partner out because you're into swinging, you're into a little bit of wife swap or husband swapping, and they develop a taste for it because you've introduced them to it, it's a very different scenario. People are going to be very sympathetic if you're a loving, caring, monogamous person in a monogamous relationship, and then randomly a person cheats. Some people will have sympathy for you. Some people treat it like a crime. I personally don't, but people have sympathy. But if you tout that partner around at parties and at events because you want to see them, like it's a kink of yours to watch them do it, I think people are then far less sympathetic if it's, after exposing him to all of this or her to all of this, she cheated the other day. I think people will be less sympathetic with you because you've kind of opened Pandora's box somewhat. So I also think there is truth in that as well. And the problem with this whole conversation, the media, on whichever camp they've taken up base with, have just lacked balance. They've lacked the nuance. And football fans, I get it. But there we go. Is this still about football? Yes, but it's called an analogy, my friend. It's called an analogy. Relax and calm down. You shouldn't feel, if you feel insecure about what I've just said, you really have got to get a life. Come on now. Newcastle will regret if they force Isak to stay. There is that possibility they'll regret it. And that absolutely exists on every single level, that they may end up regretting this. They absolutely may end up regretting it. I'm just putting a link in for the call-in show this morning into our group chats. And I'm going to put it into the live chat too. So it's in the live chat, and it's also in the group chats as well. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who's become a member of the Football Terrace in recent days, weeks, months. You guys have been fantastic for us. If you do want to become an official member, if you want to join the club, I'll put that link in the description as well, so you guys can sign up and support us by coming in. I know a lot of you super chat, and I know a lot of you hit the like buttons and stuff, but it's another great way to support us. So a big thank you to everyone who has done that. The link is in there for you as well. United have the money to bid for Believer, but now they say new signings can only happen after sales. How does that make sense? Maybe we didn't have enough money to meet the valuation. Equally, I don't necessarily believe it. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean. Like, you got to read between the lines sometimes. You got to read between the lines sometimes. I think that's really, really important to look at. It's a great point though, Kev. Football contracts isn't to keep a player longer than they intend the contract. They are there to enforce a value for the primary club when they are selling. I thought, again, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I never thought about it from that perspective, but we know that holds truth, because sometimes a club know they're going to sell a player, but they get them to renew a contract so they can maintain the value, which is the biggest reason that Liverpool fans were angry at Trent, because he didn't sign a new deal to maintain his value. So there's a great deal of truth in what you're saying there, my friend. But we all pick and choose. We don't always look at it that way. You know, and what is the valuation? Has it been met closely? You know, maybe Isak's argument, again, I'm only spitballing here. Maybe Isak's argument is, look, they offered you 120 verbally, and you just, like, it was a hard no. And that's quite close to where we were. And maybe if you were a little bit more encouraging, maybe if you were a little bit more open to the deal and you negotiated more, we could have come to a conclusion. And maybe that's the promise they made. You know, I'm just putting it out there. Maybe that is what they said to him. If we get close to it, we'll negotiate. And he's like, well, you're not negotiating. You're just shutting the door and whatever else. And I'm intrigued to see what comes out about this. But I believe Isak has had promises that have not been met. I do believe it. Just a personal belief. And like I said all along, though, I think there's things that Newcastle are entitled to do. Newcastle are entitled to dig their heels in. They're entitled to change their minds. They just are. Because if Isak's entitled to force a move, they're entitled to change their minds. They're entitled to go, actually, we changed. No, we're not going to do it now. We're going to keep you. It might not work out for them. It might mean a disgruntled player doesn't want to be there, but they are within their rights to do it. Do you think Liverpool have given their word to Isak, hence they are not able to pivot to any other striker targets? Would this saga now be detrimental to Liverpool? Big fan of your unbiased opinions. Thank you. I don't think it'd be detrimental to Liverpool if they pivoted, but who would they pivot to that's as good as Isak? There isn't anyone. And if they pivot to somebody else instead of Isak now, all they will do is create a situation where they're never getting Isak because he's too old then, because they've got two strikers. So they might wait. They might pivot to a left winger, potentially, but we'll see. All right, let's bring on some callers. We've got K-Mac and we have Kane backstage, which will be interesting. One's Newcastle, one's Liverpool. We'll be getting them on to have their say. They didn't speak to us last night, so some good new voices to have on the show. But Kane is here. K-Mac is with us. Let me just click this button here to move myself over. Kane, I want to go to you first as a Newcastle fan. There was obviously Isak's statement last night. There was the return by your football club. We were obviously talking about it in the group chat that we're in. What do you make of it from both sides, and how do you see this progressing from here?
Interesting, definitely fun. Fun for neutrals. I tend to agree with both sides. I agree with you in that I think promises probably have been made and probably have been broken. What those promises are, I don't know. I think anyone's, because we heard all the speculation, even on the promises. We'll have Liverpool sources, K-Mac, maybe even one of them, who says, oh, it was a promise that Isak could leave. Craig Hope's come out and said, well, actually, that promise was the contract that we was promised and not given. So we don't know what the promises are that was broken. But yeah, I mean, I have no reason to disbelieve what he has to say. I think some of what he said in terms of they knew my position for a while, and some of his actions since don't really match up in terms of beginning of the summer. If his intentions were made earlier in the year that he wanted to leave, why in the summer are you trying to convince Alanga to join through social media, celebrating the arrivals, going to Austria with the team on preseason training? The timing didn't really make sense to me, but listen, I mean, again, it comes down to conjecture, really. How it proceeds, I don't know. It depends on what those conditions were. Again, it could have been Newcastle get a striker. It could be the bid that Liverpool need to put in. If it's hard to say. I think there's a way that he leaves, and I think there is a way that he is reintegrated into the squad, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, the only thing I'd challenge about what you said is the sort of the timing thing around when, if and when, and how we could leave. And the one thing I would say about that is, I think that's in response to the claim that again, I do think the Luke Edwards of this world are not helping the situation with the way they're acting today. I mean, and I know we've agreed this, the whole, I did tell you back in March, well, no, your claim says if bids are of 80 to 90 million, that would be ridiculous. The verbal bid was 120. Like, I just don't like the weird sort of clout chasing off the back of it. But I also remember him writing I think it was him, but it could have been one of the other two, that sort of said that Isak's this whole, it's like, again, he's claiming now again he was never for sale, right? But it was only a couple of weeks ago he was saying that Newcastle have only considered selling him because of the way Isak's behaved in the last couple of weeks. This is kind of out of the blue, and he didn't the club didn't expect this, where the player is saying, no, I literally told you many months ago that I wanted this move, but now now Newcastle via its journalists are pushing out stories that this has all come as a shock to them. And we know that's true because the press kept on saying the player won't be forced in the move. He loves the club too much. He's dedicated to the club. Liverpool to struggle. And it turns out none of that was true. And I think that's where Isak has got a little pissed off, where he's like, you're making it sound like I've committed myself to the club and then done this U-turn late, where actually I told you over a year ago I wanted. Now, him telling me a year ago he wanted to go doesn't mean he has to be allowed to leave. But it's the painting of that, if for instance, KJ tells me, I can't work on Saturday. I can't work on Saturday, whatever this Saturday is. I don't know the date, the 23rd, 24th. I can't work on that Saturday because I'm going out with the family. But he tells me 6 months ago, if it gets to like 3 or 4 days before, and I'm like, guys, I can't stream now. KJ's let me down. He decided to go away last minute. KJ's got a right to moan, to say, hang on, no. I told you months ago. And I think that's all that is. But what's frustrated me about the conversations is, it's been the lack, and you and Ash that have come on the terrace have been amazing, Obelad, as Newcastle fans. But the stuff I see online, there is just no nuance. There is no balance. It's everything Liverpool and Isak are doing is cruel and wrong, and what we've been misrepresented and misused. And I never believe in any of these circumstances that it's all one-sided. I believe that it's 6 of one and 2 3s of another sometimes. And that's, I think, where this problem all lies, is that everybody's become, and I get it, everyone's become tribal over this. And I don't think that has helped the situation either, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think when it comes to Luke Edwards, I mean, my experience of him is he's more of a troll than a journalist, because even before, when like 2 years ago, when Newcastle were running into the FFP situations where we had to sell Anderson and Minter, that summer beforehand, Newcastle were excited. Oh, what we're going to get push on, we're going to buy people. And then Luke Edwards was coming out and essentially doing the same thing to Newcastle fans, saying, listen, Newcastle have no money, you're all idiots, they can't say anything, they can't buy anyone, and you're going to see sales. And then that's kind of what we saw. So I feel like he is just a troll in that sense, rather than a journalist. And now more and more people are just seeing that. I agree that I don't blame the sentiment of Isak. Like I said, he's well entitled to want to move. And to force the move. My preference would have been if this was the case, if it was as far back as he said, then at the beginning of the summer, I would have expected a written transfer request, and you continue training and playing until you're sold. And then because any money he loses between when he hands it in and now, I'm fairly certain Liverpool would have recouped him that lost wages anyway. So that's the other part that needs to be like.
Yeah,
there's some. He's right to want what he wants, but the way he's gone about it is wrong, in my opinion.
This is where I back Newcastle, and I want to kind of throw this statement over to K-Mac, who's a Liverpool fan. Should Isak now just hand in official transfer request, take the hit financially, and do it this way rather than more public statements? Is that, as a Liverpool fan, should he go down that road now?
No, because look, if you read the tea leaves, he's very specific about what he's done and when he done it and who he spoke to. And this is a case, and I'm telling you, this is a case of Newcastle going, oh, well, we don't know nothing about it. Well, that's because your director of football left, who he probably spoke to, and potentially the one before that he probably spoke to as well. So this is a case of, oh, well, the guy's not in the building now, so we can't claim or confirm that. And that's what it's about. And I'm sorry, but Newcastle is an absolute shit show right now, internally, externally. And the main person that's made this so much worse than anybody else, you should be blaming Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe made this so wishy-washy with all of his interviews that he had when he was on your pre-season tour by saying, oh, it's all about looking after the player. We know they have short careers and they're ambitious. Eddie Howe should have just shut it completely down and went, the guy's not for sale. It doesn't matter how much you offer. That's it. But that's not what happened. There's always been a price. There's always been a price by the media, by the pundits, by Newcastle themselves. I mean, come on, your statement that you've just announced now after Isak's statement, which he was forced to do, by the way. He was forced to do by the amount of vitriol and hate, and like every single big media outlet has been saying that Isak is bad man. Isak is the bad man. No, he's not. He's entitled to have a move to a bigger club. He's entitled to that. And he's done it the right way. He's been respectful. Like, he hasn't handed in a transfer request because he doesn't want to lose his loyalty bonus, which is fair enough. He's got a 3-year contract. Probably going to lose quite a lot of money. Yeah? But he's given them plenty of time. And you can't say that he hasn't, because Newcastle have been searching for a striker how many times? How many strikers have you tried for now? Sesko wasn't going to be Isak's wasn't going to be the player that plays with Isak. Ekitike wasn't going to be the player that plays with Isak. These were all going to be replacements. And you tried, 5, 6 strikers? That's not Isak's fault. He's given you plenty of time to get your shit done. And you haven't. And that's just all it is now. And Liverpool have broken no rules or no contract stuff. All they did was they waited for the moment and they put in an offer. And the offer was the biggest offer that anybody has offered a player and a club this season. But for everybody to come out and say Liverpool are lowballing, it's just not true. 110 million is a huge amount of money, and it doubles, triples any money that Newcastle's ever had for a player. So for them to turn around and say, oh, he's worth 150 million. No, he's not, because he plays for Newcastle.
I see.
He plays for Newcastle. He's not worth 150 million.
I see you're one of those.
That's
people.
Simple.
Okay.
I can't lie. I'd have to disagree with that one, my man.
So let me just go to Sunshine here. He's a Man United fan on this. What do you make of what K-Mac just said there, that he's not worth the money because he's a Newcastle player?
Yeah, no, I think, I disagree with that. Listen, you can have players from any club, any team, and they have the level of quality that would show a certain level of value. So, yes, I understand, but I completely disagree. It is not so much that I'm looking at the price tag of 110. I think it's almost like you should be grateful because you're Newcastle, you're getting 110. No, get what you're worth. I'm all about get what you're worth, regardless of what you played for. If you've dominated in the Premier League, cool. If you've done it for Newcastle, cool. If you've then got Newcastle into the Champions League, you're now saying you're a Champions League club. You're no longer Newcastle. So that's where the value comes from. And then you have to look at the quality, his age, and then just look at the manner in which he's gone about his time at Newcastle. So you can look at it from that perspective and go, well, that's easily a minimum of 110, but it's not maximum 110. And then you can go and look at the players that have been signed previously for bigger clubs, bigger teams, and where they've come from. Declan Rice came from West Ham. Are we saying West Ham didn't deserve 100 mil? Because for Declan Rice, because
that wasn't Arsenal.
Yeah, but
the bidding more. There's no bidding more here.
No, but that's not my point. But that's not my point. The logic you're having is the level of the club level. So do West Ham deserve 100 mil because it's Declan Rice, even though Declan Rice has nowhere near done anything to the level of Isak and is a striker. So
that's my. He won a European competition. Newcastle haven't won anything.
I'm not
World Cup.
Yeah, if I can finish, bro. I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm just disagreeing with your opinion. So by all means, have that opinion, have that outlook. That's fine, but I just disagree with it. And that's cool. But in terms of the Isak situation, Terry, look, I've got to look at this as a Newcastle problem. I genuinely believe there was an agreement for Isak to go. But I don't believe Newcastle foresaw that their approach to replacing Isak would have been shut down in the way it's been shut down by the big clubs. I think they've gone and tried to fish in the big pond and against the big clubs and thought that UCL and their success for the season prior would be enough to go in there. And yes, it's bold, but the reality of the situation is UCL, being in the UCL, is only a pull for those that are in the top six, respectfully. Why? Because quite evidently, people would still choose Man United as they have done for less wages because we have the pull. So, for example, you look at the Gyökeres situation and the Man United situation. Man United knew that we would have to have the rebound of either Seshko or Gyökeres because they were in the UCL. The club standard was fine, but we knew we had to have the rebound. Newcastle, again, naively or boldly, whatever word you want to say, have gone into that pool and tried to replace the same quality of Isak. Nothing wrong with that, but they've fallen short. And the part that they've struggled now with is going, well, we have to shop in a different market now. We have to go and get Wissa and stuff like that. When really that should have been the focus on the start. And now it's added a level of pressure to Newcastle. It's almost like, we've got to keep Isak. Let's tell a few fibs or twist the truth, shall we say? Let's not actually twist the truth. Let's be honest, but let's not be transparent because there's a big difference. You can always say, oh yeah, he's always welcome to do this and he's always welcome to come back. That might be true. But are you being transparent with the information according to what Isak said? And I think fairly, respectfully, Isak's now in a situation going, you ain't got your crap together. You didn't go out there and find me the striker to replace me. And now you're putting it back on me to try and stay in the club because you've made a mistake. I genuinely believe that's what Newcastle have done, as an outsider looking in. And I think they're trying to hold Isak accountable for that and are happy for him to take the slack. And yeah, I think it's just been really poor from the Newcastle board and owners to think that they could shop in the big market because they made UCL. Maybe they've been watching too many Twitter accounts. I don't know, because that's not how football works, sadly. You're a big club or you're not. It is what it is. But then at the same time, because you've failed in that area, you're now trying to recoup Isak and keep him on your side and be all sweet to him. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I feel like Isak's gone about it the right way, given what I believe, but I could be wrong because I'm not there and I don't have the exact information. It's just an intelligent guess.
I hear that. I want to just challenge K-Mac on something. I want to ask a question. So just so I understand you right, because I feel like I've misheard you. So are you saying that a player who scores 20 goals a season for Liverpool is more valuable than a player that scores 20 goals a season for Newcastle because of the club they play for?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you don't pay £150 million for a player from Newcastle. End of. You just don't. Like, you'd be mad.
Okay, but what makes a player?
But I also didn't say that we should pay 110 million. By the way, that was
no. I understand that, but I just want. It's more the logic than Isak. So let's just pick Joe Bloggs and Alan Smith. They both Alan Smith's at Liverpool. Joe Bloggs is at Newcastle. For the next 5 seasons, they both score 25 league goals each every season. Why is the Liverpool player more valuable than the Newcastle player?
Because he plays for Liverpool.
But but that's not an
It's like-
explanation. Why does
like
that make him more
Havertz.
valuable?
If anything, the other player has
Havertz
less talent and producing the same amount of output.
Yeah, no, I get. I want to understand why being a Liverpool player makes
It's
him more
the club.
valuable. But why though? That's not an answer.
£150 million players. Like,
Yeah, but that's not. But that's not. I need to know the rationale. Saying because of the club again, that's very superficial.
Because you haven't won the Champions League, you haven't won a Premier League, you're not competing at the top level. Like you barely made the Champions League. Like,
I have sorry. I have to chime in here because that logic, it doesn't make any kind of sense, right? Because if a player plays for a lesser club and he is doing well at that lesser club, that is testament to the player himself. Because for the player to be at such a quality with players who's not at good quality as the players in Liverpool, it speaks volumes to that player. So if that club value that player, we using Isak in this instance because it's him. Newcastle never flippy-flop from the very beginning. Before we heard any links with anybody, they asked for 150 million. They didn't change their tune. They said this is what they want. I believe Liverpool, you should pay that money. You should pay that money. The reason why you should pay that money, because to me, Isak is the only person here that basically did nothing wrong. Newcastle at fault, Liverpool at fault. Liverpool at fault because you all unsettled this player. Yes, Isak and Newcastle had a gentleman's agreement since however long ago. Newcastle should have done their due diligence. You all knew that this player wanted to leave from when the season ended. You all should have had several players highlighted, one player in particular, or have two that you all want to go for. As the transfer window open, you all should have been on it. Newcastle. Now that you missed out on basically all your targets, you all know Isak wanted to leave. But you can't say that Isak, because he's playing for Newcastle, Liverpool shouldn't pay that money. You want this player?
Absolutely.
Saying that because you're a rival.
I know. Here's what I'm saying.
If Delap scored 7 more goals, is he worth 150 million?
No, here's what I'm saying.
Like, that's your logic.
All right.
Literally the
Just
logic
quickly,
all the
just
other
quickly.
rivals are making up now.
Yeah,
If
but
I can.
you want
Not
him.
worth 150 million quid. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like,
Let's flip it.
Well, if you don't think he's worth 150 million quid, then
just now. Here's
you're gonna have to
Can we
Guys, sorry, one at a time. I'm gonna go to Sunshine.
Here's what I'm saying.
Sorry,
Right?
let me just flip it for a quick one. When we Terry, just correct me. How much did we buy Casemiro for?
80, I think.
80 million, right? Okay, cool. And obviously he'd won everything and stuff. But he plays for Real Madrid. Real Madrid are a bigger club than Man United, respectfully. Massive, actually. So are you saying we should have spent 150 because, that's the angle?
Yeah.
Because there are players that play for lesser clubs that have gone for big money from big clubs and vice versa. So the stature of the club, there are players that have gone to big clubs, not done very well, by the way, and then they've been sold for less. But we're saying that because they played for that club, they should be valued a certain amount. You can look at Sebastian Veron, for example. I'm looking at Man United now because you made the comment about the bread of being a rival fan. So let's stick it onto my club, Man United. We've had players that have left Man United who are a massive club, and we don't even sell anything nowhere near the price that you should get because of the club. Because what is it? Because their value diminishes. So if that player's value diminishes, then that's on the flip side, to keep the balance, a player that has their value risen should then be worth what they've put had their output for.
Yeah. And the thing is, K-Mac, I'm going to go to Tom and I'm going to go to Ash. I know Joe's been waiting a while, but obviously they're Liverpool and Newcastle fans. There still hasn't been a rationale provided to why a world-class player, I was getting a bit of echo from someone, why a world-class player for Newcastle is worth less than a world-class player for Liverpool. I understand in the sense of if one's been delivering in the Premier League, in the Champions League, as well as the Premier League, you can make that argument because Champions League goals hold weight. But I don't think just being a Liverpool player makes you more valuable, because by that logic, that means Jay Spearing was probably worth more money than Belieber, and he isn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because Jay Spearing played for Liverpool,
he didn't play many Premier League games.
Also, sorry, but by the way, Alan Shearer is probably has a greater Premier League legacy than any Liverpool striker ever. I'm just gonna say so.
Tom, you're a Liverpool fan. What do you make of this? Do you believe that Newcastle players are not as valuable as Liverpool players if they're as good?
No, it's a seller's market, football now. So every player is worth what they're worth. If anything, Newcastle players are probably worth a little bit more than Liverpool players because of the difference in stature of club. So for Newcastle to have a world-class player, with all due respect, Newcastle don't have many world-class players. Liverpool have a couple more world-class players in their team at once than Newcastle do. Therefore, having one means you're going to value it higher than the person who's got 4 or 5. The one part that I will disagree with, though, is the whole Liverpool have came into this window and unsettled them. We've not, bar a bid of 110 million quid, which isn't this incredibly disrespectful bid, in my opinion. It's low, but it's not incredibly disrespectful, should never be talked about again. We haven't exactly done anything. We went to the table. When Newcastle bid for Ekitike, we went to Newcastle and went, are you selling Isak this window? And they said no. So we went, okay, we're going to move on and get Ekitike then. And then Isak went, well, I want to go now. We haven't told him, listen, we're going to get Ekitike now. We want you to bell up Eddie Howe and tell him, listen, I've had enough, I want to go. We haven't done any of that. We sat there, we rang them up. We went, are you just going to sell Isak this window? They went, no. We went, okay, fair enough. We'll go and get our second choice then. And then the first choice become available. There's nothing we've done outside that. Newcastle are completely entitled to ask for what they asked for. And the statement yesterday is meant to drive people away. But the line of we don't foresee it coming in still makes me think that there's room for something to happen in this window. It still makes me think that if Liverpool did just sit there and go, right, you know what? We've sat there, we waited this whole time. We're not going to wait anymore. 140, 150 million on the table right now. I think Newcastle sit there and go, ooh. Because it's very different when the money's on the table.
Right? Now, here's this, right? Because you said that Liverpool went to Newcastle to find out if they are selling Isak this year. They told you all no. So you all went and get Hugo Ekitike. So why would Liverpool put in a bid after the fact Newcastle told you all no?
Because then Alexander Isak handed in a transfer request and moved out of his house and tried to push through a move. So he suddenly became available.
You all tried to embarrass that club.
We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything.
We were speaking to Ekitike. We were speaking to Ekitike in January, apparently. So he was obviously one of our targets anyway.
We can't listen. We can't say Liverpool haven't done anything to turn Isak's. It's a bit like if Tom.
That's obvious.
His head got turned, but we never sat there and went, listen, what we want you to do, we're going to sign Ekitike, and then we want you to really cause loads of shit, and then we'll get you 3 weeks later. No, we just sat there and asked them.
No one is saying that. Equally, you made a move. You know what I mean? You don't end up in bed with your missus. Like you meet her on a night out. Don't end up in bed with your future wife by chance. You just, I woke up and she was there. You did a little saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Come on now.
Tom, do you know what it's like, bro? Do you know what it's like, bro? Yeah. Do you remember when back in the day, when we had a bit of pull, when United, well, we still got pull, but when we had a bit of pull under Fergie never had to go out there to players and give the whole spiel about Man United. It was literally just a case of, I'm going to make a phone call, and because it's me on the phone, you're going to take me more seriously. Liverpool are in a situation where they don't have to go out there and beg, man. They just literally got to make one little movement to go, right, you're interested. It's enough. Do you know what I mean? So no one's sitting there going, oh my gosh, yeah, we've had to, rain down fire just to get him, just to make sure. No, because you have the pull, bro. Let's be honest. You're champions. You're in a good place. That bid alone is enough for him to go, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, but the bid was 2.5 weeks after he told Newcastle he wanted to leave. It wasn't like we bid and then he went, okay, I want to go. It was a case of he has to go. And then 2.5 weeks later, we went, okay, let's try and test the waters. And then we bid 110 million, which they got annoyed at. If we'd have bid and then he handed in the transfer request, I'm fully on board with it. But the fact is, What happened? We can't help it if players find it attractive. We can't help it if we sit there and go, we're interested in the players, go, oh, yeah, I want a bit of that. And it's out of our hands. At the end of the day, when the Ekitike thing was going on, we went to Newcastle first and we went, are you open to selling Alexander Isak this window? And they went, no. So we pivoted and got Ekitike. And then Isak, for whatever reason, handed in his, well, he didn't hand in the transfer, but said he wanted
for whatever
to leave.
Reason, we know what reason. He wanted to play for Liverpool. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to some super chats. We'll get more of your opinions. This here from Zig says, in the Swedish media, it's told that Isak was promised by Newcastle that they would invest in the back line. Then they went and bid for Ekitike, which showed him what he was afraid of. Therefore, he wanted to leave. An interesting take we haven't heard here in the UK. I'm sure Luke Edwards will have something to say about that. Pivot to Julian Alvarez, £120 million bid. Wouldn't be a bad signing. Wouldn't be a bad signing.
Look that as well, but it's not going to happen.
Ray here says, pay what Newcastle value, then see. Ash, is that where this is now? Just pay the 150 and get it done. Is that where you're at with this?
I mean, of course. If that's what's going to be. It's the thing is, right, first of all, saying that a player that doesn't play for Liverpool is valued less is one of the most delusional takes I've heard in a very long time. Because let's be honest, right, you would think if Isak came to someone like Liverpool, he would be putting an extra 5 to 10 goals in a whole season in, which I don't know. I don't think you can determine the value of a player by the club they play for. It should be the impact that they do and how they are on and off the pitch. I think, look, what was being said, and it's been very clear by the club, is that Isak is not for sale unless there's certain criteria that's being met. And obviously the criteria would be a replacement for Callum Wilson, so he's gone, so that'll be Wissa, and then there'll be a replacement for Isak, which, whether that's someone who's at a similar level or who has a potential to get to the ceiling of what Isak does. Obviously, at the end of the day, if those talks have been had during the season and stuff, then Isak must understand that he will be sold if we can find those players to be able to get that, because we can't just sell him and have no one, because we need to remember we also don't even have a second striker at the moment because Callum Wilson went on a free. So we can't just leave ourselves vulnerable, because if we sell Isak right now at a slightly reduced fee, say 130 million, which is too low, we're going to get charged the Newcastle fee and just added 10-20 million on each player we find. We're going to be in a very, very bad place. So I do agree we need to get the deal sorted, however it gets done, but we can't be lowballing and just settling for less than what he's actually worth. Like, if we don't get the amount of money that we need for him, we just can't sell him. It's end of, and he's in a contract for 3 years, and it's his fault for not having a release clause.
Lou here says, what a condescending take from K-Mac is what Lou says, one of our members. Ginger Bish says Newcastle lauded Isak as the best striker in the world and are now crying because Isak wants to win top honours at a bigger club. Made your own bed. Yeah, there's an element of like, yeah, you got a new gold watch and you're flashing it off around the pub and then you get mugged and you're like, oh, why'd that happen? There's a little bit of that going on here. I'm getting an echo here. It might be from you, Ash. I'm going to put you on mute until I speak to you again. Sorry, I think it's because you got no earphones. Sorry, mate. Paying for Liverpool has higher pressure, hence the value goes up.
Right.
The value is ultimately decided by the selling club, and if a selling club has money so if the selling club has no reason to sell because they've got money already, or has ambitions of something else, it's going to be higher. At the end of the day, there's no black and white. You play for such and such a club, so your value is higher. It's not how it works.
Yeah. I agree.
You kind of just need to look at the market value, by the way. Like, it's not 150 million quid. Sorry.
What would you mean?
But how do you get to that?
150 million quid.
Market value is another fucking moot point now, because market value is just designed on the basis of everyone's valued.
But that's what Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards will be looking at. They'll be looking at market value.
They're not going to. But they're not going to go on the transfer market.
We've not sold any of our players for market value.
Yeah.
No, well, we never do.
But then we
So
can't
do
vote
you
for another
do you
country.
think Wirtz is worth more than Isak then?
Wirtz is worth more than Isak.
Oh, breaking
Yeah.
news, people! Breaking news! Breaking news!
question.
Breaking news! Breaking news! Arsenal forward Kai Havertz is set for a spell out with a knee injury. On the 26-year-old's injury is an early stage prognosis, duration unclear, but Arsenal actively exploring the transfer market.
Nicholas Jackson?
Sounds like a bad one. Sounds like a bad one.
Oh
Kai
my God,
Havertz
they're gonna get Nicholas Jackson on loan.
are.
Oh my
Let's
God.
go.
Arsenal.
Positive Dan's backstage. He's crying. He's in tears.
Arsenal.
They should buy Isak. They should buy Isak for 150
Come on,
million.
Oh,
That'd be
wow.
Yeah.
Our
Let's
best
do it.
customers, bring them. Come.
You Chelsea fans are like, we've got one for it. Listen, we've got Rasmus as well. Come on, United. Let's sell him a bit of Rasmus. Let's sell him a bit of Rasmus. Not that we're selling, by the way, very bad news for Kai Havertz after just getting back after the hamstring injury. But when you read that, from the fact they're going into the transfer market, that sounds like it's going to be that seems like it's going to be a bad one for Kai Havertz.
What about Gabriel Jesus? Doing they still have Gabriel?
Gabriel Jesus won't be back until around January time.
Jeez,
Gabriel Jesus also has no knee.
Yeah, he's got no knees.
Yeah.
I think what about they pivot for what about if they
Isak.
pivot for Isak? Yeah, they go for Isak.
They'll make us bid at
Harry,
Let's get
we're
rid of
not
more
even
going.
paying for Eze. You think we're going to go and pay triple the
no.
amount for Isak? Come on.
No. Do you know what's happened there, Anton? You're very intelligent, but North American brain has not heard the sarcasm. I love how sarcasm sometimes goes over North Americans' heads. I think it's a thing of beauty. It really is.
Arsenal are going to bid 110 million and £1.
Yeah, that's what to do. But they've got to go and try and get Rodrigo after he didn't kick a ball yesterday again. I think they've got to go and do that.
Yeah, I think that is what they will do.
Can I chime in now, given this is my club?
Yeah, 1 second. Saying North American brain, I mean, he has got North American. I've got an English brain in the sense of like your brain. I'm talking about the humorous element of it. It's where you
I
grow
actually
up.
live in Australia, where everyone is very sarcastic.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that's because essentially they're British. Do you know what I mean? That's essentially like the British nature of it out there, mate. But no, I do it a lot with Egawa. That sometimes like Staffy's the same. I'll say something sarcastic, and they're like, "Do you really mean that?" And I'm like, "Nah, bro, it was sarcasm." But there we go. I love it. But Anton, yes, we'll come back to the Isak conversation because we'll talk about this more on Straight Facts at 3:30. But yeah, bad news. Kai Havertz out.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, luckily this time around we've got Victor Gyökeres, and the small good part about this is now I believe that the noise around he'll drop Gyökeres for Havertz next week every single week is going to go away because we don't have any other choice. But in terms of us going into the market to replace Kai Havertz, the evidence would suggest that was not happen, because at the moment, just to buy any other player on the left wing, to buy Eze, apparently the reports are we're close with FFP, which I don't believe, but that's what Ornstein keeps saying, and Ornstein is the most reliable source out there. So I have to go by what he says. And last January, we had no Gabriel Jesus, we had no Kai Havertz, and we had Mikel Merino up front, and we didn't invest in striker at all. So this really, really worries me, because I actually don't believe, given the evidence that's been given, that Arsenal is going to invest in the striker. I mean, into a backup striker. And it's interesting because I believe we still need the left-sided player a bit more, because as in that's still a first choice player that we're still short of. So
Yeah.
Look, it's not a good piece of news for Arsenal. I mean, I actually thought that Kai was playing pretty well recently. Like, he came on and made a bit of an impact against United. So
no, I hear that completely. Joe, what do you make of it? I haven't spoke yet. What do you make of this Arsenal news before we get back to the Isak stuff, which is the main focus today? What should their pivot be in your opinion?
Well, Ben Jacobs has been talking all summer, especially on United, about Mitrovic, maybe towards the end of the window on loan. So if that's a market opportunity that could open up. I know it's not great, but it's at least something to give them something off the bench who can score goals.
Vardy's available.
Huh? Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy is available.
Well, I don't know.
it'd
They
be
need to
smart
bring
to go
something
for
off the
Chris
bench,
Wood.
you know, because they can't just play Gyökeres week in, week out. They've got so many games.
I mean,
you know.
we do have Mikel Merino who played there for basically 6 months last year. So the other option would be that Arsenal would buy another midfielder.
You're going to win the league. Like,
Oh,
no, of course.
What if
But
this is
I'm
the
talking
pivot?
about my club, and I know them very well.
But
I know
Anton,
the way they think.
what if this is the pivot? A midfielder. You need more of an attacking midfielder, right? What if you go, right, Moreno, you're covering a striker again, and you go, oh, Eze, hello, Eze, because I'm talking the drama here, right?
Can I tell you, Terry?
I'm talking about the drama. One sec. I'm talking about the drama. You go in
No,
now,
I
you turn
agree.
his head, take him off. Listen, for all us outsiders that are not involved in that would just be popcorn, cup of tea. Let's sit back and watch it play out. That's what I'd like to see.
I mean,
Now-
a striker they wanted in January might be available very soon. If
Well,
if
Ollie
Aston Villa are
Watkins.
serious about
Yeah.
that Nicholas Jackson loan deal,
Watkins,
they've already bought a striker this window. It's kind of forcing Watkins out the door. And he's of an age where it's not going to exactly be, detrimental. Because
Well,
he'll
actually-
be 30. You can just
And
sort of bring him
Chelsea
in
is
for a couple
willing
of
to
years.
give Nicholas Jackson on loan as well.
There were reports earlier in the
Yes,
summer
it is
that
correct.
Sorry, go
Arsenal
on,
were
Anton.
looking at Watkins as not an alternative to Gyökeres or Sesko. That there was a potential that they could be looking at him to be an alternative if the opportunity were to come up. Again, that's always the caveat with Arsenal, because if the opportunity will come up and they don't do enough to take advantage of those opportunities.
Garnacho pivot.
No.
I know Garnacho only wants Chelsea. Oh, I'm not saying you want him. I'm saying that could be fun. But yeah, look, they've got to act now,
But
Arsenal.
The Eze thing, I have to
Hang
get.
on, I've got the one. I've got the one. This is not Eze would be better, but for drama, how about they go and get Wissa?
Yeah, I knew you were going to say
What about
Wissa. Hey,
Another
60
Newcastle,
million.
another Newcastle rejection. Can you
But
imagine?
how much will Arsenal
can't.
Arsenal have? Because I know they've just signed Trossard on an extension. They've not extended his contract years, but they've given him more money.
Which
No.
makes him harder to sell,
Well,
which
I'm
is
not-
ridiculous.
Well, there's that, yeah, but then I'm looking at it going, wait there. What is the thinking behind it when you haven't bought Eze yet? And I had alarm bells when they bought Noni. Don't get me wrong, it's not about the player Noni, but I'm thinking you've got Eze and Noni, you've gone and spent 50 odd million or whatever it was. Don't quote me because I know there's certain people who are a little bit, whatever with it, but around 50 million, right? And then they've spent that money before getting Eze, who's arguably a better player, who could arguably do a better job than Noni, and you're trying to go for the title. Something wasn't making sense to me. And then they've recently now giving Trossard a little bit more money. Are they struggling with their targets? Is the question. Because if so, and now Havertz is in a situation that's extra pressure on Gyökeres to bring home a title, to go and do amazing things in the UCL, according to the pressure that Arsenal fans are now putting under Arteta, rightfully so, because of course they haven't won enough in this build-up period. I don't know if they've got the money to go and put that out there, given these things I've just highlighted. I'm just questioning it for now. They could do.
Understand, Sunshine. From what I understand, is that it's not the fact that Arsenal have problem with their targets. For instance, Eze's original plan was to join Arsenal. It was his first preference. The thing is that Arteta and Berta, I believe, and that's kind of what I'm just reading, what I've been reading and putting everything together. They're very keen to add another player. That's why they've been looking at Rodrigo. They've been looking at Eze. Like the hand of Arsenal have said, from the beginning of the summer, that Arsenal's dream target on the left wing is Rodrigo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I believe has gone on to happen is they've made a mistake with Madueke. They've said, look, I don't know if Rodrigo is willing to leave Madrid, so we don't want to be left with nobody. So right now we're going to buy someone here now to make sure we have somebody in the building, and later on, if we're able to make the sales, then we can go and get Rodrigo. But what I believe since then has happened is that the Cronkies or the board has said, look, we had a certain amount that we're willing to let you spend at this moment in time. You can only make any more purchases if you sell the players, and we're struggling to sell the players. Yeah. And I think what happened yesterday was that Arsenal were like, you know what, we cannot just sell these players for fees that are lower than what we value them at.
Absolutely,
so we might as well just keep them. And that's what the Trossard thing signalized. So for me, I gave up on Arsenal's transfer plan.
You didn't need to give him more money, though.
But
No,
this is the thing.
the
last question I'll have for you then. Was there any interest? So I don't follow the transfer news too tough for obvious reasons. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but was there anybody else in for Noni at that time? Because what it seems like is they've made a desperate pitch because they won't get their main target, which is fine, by the way, but it can have its connotations and implications moving forward, which I think this is the situation now. But if there wasn't anyone really in for Noni at the time of the transfer market as well, when you've bought him, would you have not held out a little bit longer before going, you know what, I'll make the Noni signing later? Because you've now lost 50 odd million. And now does this situation happen with Havertz? Surely you would have gone, you know what, let me try and hold out for Eze at this point. Because right now, let's say Noni wasn't in the team for the United game, I don't think you would have seen a much of a difference. Respectfully, I don't think it would have made that much of a difference as opposed to what Trossard's done. And if you've added a little extra money for Trossard, but no extra years on his contract, which still doesn't make no sense to me, and still rings alarm bells. But let's say that was the Noni replacement instead, just to say, you know what, Trossard. Let's say, okay, let's put it even. Let's say Trossard wanted to leave, but then there's this situation where you didn't know if you're going to get your left winger or whatever. You'd say, you know what, Trossard, I'll let you keep your contract to what it is. Well, let's just give you a little bit more money because we may not be able to replace you. That would make more sense to keep Trossard. But that's not what's happened based on the timeline. So I can't even give that any thought, even if that's logical. So therefore, I look at it and go, really and truly, you spent 50 million on a Noni, and now you've got the situation moving forward. I don't think you've got the funds to go and replace the left winger and a striker now. I don't think you have.
Well, that's the issue that all the Arsenal fans have. That's the reason why everyone was so upset, because none of us could understand. You had Eze at the time, and Ben Jacobs, about 2 weeks prior to us signing Noni, came on this very program and said, you know, Arsenal want to get Eze. Arsenal's interested in Eze, and Eze is interested in Arsenal, and Tottenham backed away. And I came on as well maybe like a few days later onto Terry's show, and I said, I think we're going to pull the trigger on that because it just made so much sense. Like that Tottenham moved away. So there must be some sort of movement here. Like, the Noni Madueke thing was completely frustrating because we had the idea that, okay, we could buy an Eze now, have him in, like we got Madueke. And by the way, Madueke wasn't even available to play in preseason because he was at the Club World Cup with Chelsea. So couldn't even gel in with the team. Like you saw when he played on Man United, he didn't understand his defensive duties when he came on the pitch. That's one of the reasons why he prefers Martinelli to start, because Madueke is not as well drilled at this point. So you would have had Eze in, let him understand the system. He would have played the entire Asian tour. And later on, if you made the sales, then you can get a bonus guy like a Madueke. Or they could have gone and gotten Rodrigo, which was kind of what I thought was going to happen, that they were going to get an Eze, so it felt good. And then we were going to try to maybe sell a Martinelli or a Trossard and then go and get Rodrigo. Sure. Now we're left in a situation where it's Rodrigo or nothing, or it seems like it's going to be nothing because we're not able to make the sales at all.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm going to pivot back to the super chats because we're running out of time here. This is from Matty that says, I'm a Scouser and this fella is an embarrassment. I think it was about K-Mac's point about the valuation. By this logic, how can Liverpool spend over 100 million on a player from Leverkusen, a club that is not even the second biggest club in Germany? Strange logic. This is all. I mean, does that mean now instantly that Havertz is now worth 250 million pounds because he's just become?
Must be.
Yeah. You know what that logic reminded me of? It's a shame that K-Mac's not here. There's a lot of people that do this from all clubs. And you notice this when their clubs are doing well, they think their football knowledge is better because their team's better at the moment, which is a weird way to view things, because that means if suddenly your team has a bad season, your football knowledge suddenly diminishes. It's kind of strange. Isak needs to name the person who made the promise. Fair point.
He also needs to name the promise. He doesn't. He needs to outline.
There must be some sort of like non-disclosure agreement, though, that he cannot name.
No, it's just logical for him to not name the promise, because I mean, if you look at what his statements and the Newcastle statements, neither of them have lied. They've just both beat around.
They've been ambiguous on purpose. But
it's a lot of foreplay going on. Until the second bid goes in, it's all moot. I hear that. All I hear is Newcastle fans. Newcastle haven't prepared properly. I think there's some truth in that. You don't sell. Isak won't play. His valuation plummets. That's if he doesn't play. He might play though. So
also on that though, there's a sorry, I know you need to rush through these, but there is a principal standpoint. Newcastle have to take a little bit, and maybe they see the value lost in transfer they gain in the statement they take moving forward, whether you like it or not. But that's a risk that Newcastle wing at me.
It all depends on how he comes back and plays, though, because if he comes back and then just plays like he did at the back end of last season when he doesn't care, you kind of just got egg on your face again. So it's so many different parts to it.
Yeah, I can't lie. Monday night is one of the most excited feelings I've had before a football match. Like a game that doesn't have a lot riding on it at this point in terms of titles, cups, but it's going to be amazing.
And he's not even playing in it. The guy who's caused all this isn't even involved. He won't even be there.
Evan here says, take Haaland. I'll drive him to the airport myself. Hoyland, sorry, yes. Tom, why are there no pundits calling out Newcastle fans for singing "There's only one greedy bastard" when they were waxing lyrical about us booing Trent?
Because they think that Trent went about it in a much more respectful way, which by accounts he may well have done, but for us it was very disrespectful the way he went about it. So again, it's just how it is.
Spanish for a very long time. Those Duolingo points must have been just piling up.
Oh,
this here, thank you for such a big donation. I really appreciate it. It says Red fan from Australia. Isak is worth 150 million from any club. I don't like the label being thrown around at either club or Isak, and fully believe that it's because A, Isak is that good, B, Newcastle have done poorly in the window, and C, Liverpool are such a great spot. Yeah, look, I agree. Evaluation is evaluation. I don't think it matters who he plays for, personally. I agree that it could go up if you go to a team that's playing regularly in the Champions League, and that's a fair point. But I don't believe in the basic notion that just because of the club you play for, it makes your valuation go up. Because if that's the case, why do Man United sell so badly?
Yeah, why do we sell so badly?
That makes sense. Isak doesn't have to do nothing but stay black. What?
I'm assuming they're intimate and he doesn't do anything, but Isak not playing is equally as detrimental to his reputation it is to Newcastle's performance. So he could go down that route by all means, and that's his gift. But between being fined and not playing, I think it does as much damage to him as it does to Newcastle.
I hear that.
He will come back and play. It just depends on how arsed he is.
Yeah.
But by the way,
you got very quickly. I've got to go.
I will say on that super chat, I don't know if it's referring to what Wissa's done, where he's like blacked out his Instagram and stuff.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. It might have meant. I don't think he's talking about the ethnicity of the player. I think it's just a slightly badly worded comment. Because I don't think there's much that Wissa can Isak can do about it. To be honest with you. But there we go. We're not getting into that can of worms. This is going to redirect you to Footy Judge Mo's show, so go and support him over there. We're live again at 3:30. Straight facts. Myself, Hussam and Judge Mo are live. This will obviously be a big talking point. The Isak news, the Havertz news will probably grow a little bit more from there as well in terms of what they're going to do in the market. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we're going to see you all again very, very soon. Peace.